This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy, we go deep and lightly surface the big ideas.
We always look to the stars for guidance on, so many things. Love, finances, even, fashion choices. But what about our health?
Right.
I mean, sure, we all know the sun provides, vital vitamin D. But what if it's doing way more than just giving us a tan?
Yeah.
What if the sun's activity, those solar flares and geomagnetic storms, is actually impacting our health in some really profound ways? That's what we're diving into today, exploring this fascinating field of heliobiology.
Right.
The study of the sun's influence on life here on Earth.
Yeah.
We've got some really intriguing research papers to unpack. And trust me, you might never look at the sun the same way again.
I think one of the things that's so captivating about this area of research is that it really challenges our understanding of just how interconnected we are with the cosmos.
Right.
We tend to think of the sun as this kind of distant, steady source of light and heat, but it's actually a very dynamic and powerful force that can send shock waves through our solar system. And those shock waves, those geomagnetic storms, might be rippling through our bodies and minds as well.
Okay, so let's paint a picture here for our listener. What exactly is a geomagnetic storm?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty intense.
So imagine a massive explosion on the sun's surface, releasing this burst of energy and charged particles that hurtle towards Earth at incredible speeds. Now, luckily, we have Earth's magnetic field acting as a shield, deflecting most of the solar radiation.
Right.
But when these solar flares are particularly strong, they can cause ripples in our magnetic field, kind of like a rock thrown into a pond.
Okay.
And those ripples are what we call geomagnetic storms. And while we might not feel them directly, some scientists believe they can disrupt subtle processes within our bodies.
So not quite like a hurricane we can batten down the hatches for, but more like a subtle energy shift that could be impacting us on a cellular level.
Exactly. And one area where researchers have found some intriguing correlations is in the realm of mental health. A study by Kay back in 1994 found a statistically significant increase in hospital admissions for men diagnosed with depression in the weeks following these geomagnetic storms.
Now that's a correlation that makes you go,
Yeah.
So if these geomagnetic storms can really impact mood, that raises some big questions.
Yeah.
Could understanding this link lead to new treatments or preventative measures for depression?
Right.
Could we develop early warning systems alerting people to potential mood fluctuations during periods of heightened solar activity?
Those are precisely the kinds of questions that researchers are exploring. And one proposed mechanism is that geomagnetic storms can disrupt the pineal gland, a small gland in the brain that produces melatonin, a hormone that regulates sleep and mood. If our melatonin production is thrown off by these solar events, it could certainly impact our emotional state.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, we talk about seasonal affective disorder, how people's moods can dip during winter when there's less sunlight. But what if it's not just the lack of light, but also these fluctuations in the sun's activity itself that are playing a role?
It's a fascinating possibility. And it highlights just how much we still have to learn about the intricate interplay between our bodies and the environment, both here on Earth and, in the cosmos.
Well, before we get too lost in space,
Okay.
let's bring it back down to Earth for a moment and look at another study that caught our eye. This one from Morimoto in 2020 looked at ambulance calls in Japan during geomagnetic storms. And the findings were a bit of a mixed bag. On the one hand, they saw a decrease in cerebral infarctions or strokes during these solar events. But on the other hand, there was an increase in heart issues like myocardial infarctions and acute heart failures.
Right.
So very interesting.
This study really underscores the complexity of this topic. It seems the sun's influence isn't simply good or bad, but rather this nuanced interplay of forces that can have both positive and negative effects on our incredibly intricate physiological systems.
Yeah, it's like the sun is this powerful, unpredictable force that can both heal and harm depending on the circumstances. So how do we even begin to make sense of this cosmic balancing act? And with solar maximum approaching in 2025, meaning we're likely to see more frequent and intense geomagnetic storms, should we be concerned?
I wouldn't say concerned, but certainly aware.
Okay.
The more we understand about these potential connections, the better equipped we are to take care of ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Awareness is a great point. I mean, knowledge is power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive into some more research and give our listener even more knowledge to be empowered with. We know about the potential impacts on mood and heart health,
Right?
but we also came across studies suggesting a connection between solar activity and our immune systems.
Yeah, there's growing interest in how these geomagnetic storms might be influencing our immune response. Remember, these storms are essentially disruptions in Earth's magnetic field. And some researchers believe they could be disrupting subtle electromagnetic processes within our bodies as well, including those involved in immune function.
So we're talking about a potential cascade effect here.
Yeah.
A solar flare erupts, sends a wave of energy towards Earth, disrupts our magnetic field, and then potentially throws our immune systems out of whack.
That's one theory. And it's not as far-fetched as it might sound.
Right.
Our bodies are incredibly sensitive to electromagnetic fields.
Right.
Think about how light can reset our circadian rhythms,
Right.
or how electromagnetic pulses can interfere with electronic devices.
Mm.
It's not a huge leap to consider that these geomagnetic storms might be influencing our biological systems in subtle ways as well.
So what does this mean practically speaking? Could a bad solar storm make me more susceptible to catching a cold?
It's certainly possible. Remember, we're talking about complex systems here. If a geomagnetic storm disrupts our sleep, increases stress hormones, or even directly impacts immune cells, it's conceivable that it could weaken our overall immune response.
Yeah.
Making us more vulnerable to infections.
That's pretty wild to think about. I mean, it's like we're living in this delicate balance between the forces of nature,
Right.
both here on Earth and, the vastness of space, and we're just beginning to understand how interconnected we really are.
Precisely. And as we delve deeper into these connections, we're inevitably faced with a question. What can we do with this knowledge? How can we use it to our advantage?
Right. It's not enough to just know that the sun might be messing with our sleep or immune systems.
Yeah.
What are the practical implications here? Should we all be building Faraday cages around our beds or stocking up on vitamin C every time there's a solar flare?
I wouldn't go that far. While more research is certainly needed, I think the key takeaway here is awareness. Start paying attention to how you feel during different times of year, especially during those periods of heightened solar activity. There are websites and apps that track solar weather.
Wow.
So you can actually see when a geomagnetic storm is happening.
So we're becoming solar weather watchers tuning into space forecasts along with our local weather reports.
In a sense, yes.
Okay.
And this awareness can be empowering. It allows you to make choices that support your well-being.
Right.
If you know a geomagnetic storm is on its way, perhaps you prioritize getting extra rest, eating nourishing foods, managing stress levels, all things that support your immune system and overall health.
So it's like preparing for a hurricane, but for your health. Instead of boarding up windows, we're bolstering our inner defenses.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and taking a holistic approach to our well-being, recognizing that we are part of this much larger interconnected system.
This is all so fascinating. It's humbling, really, to think that something as vast and powerful as the sun could be influencing us in such subtle but significant ways. But it's also exciting to think that we're finally starting to understand these connections.
Right.
And can potentially use that knowledge to our advantage.
Absolutely. And as we learn more, we might even discover ways to harness these solar energies for good to enhance our health and well-being in ways we haven't even imagined yet.
So we've been talking about how the sun might be impacting our health in the here and now. But what if we kind of zoom out even further and look at, the grand scheme of things?
Right.
What if these solar cycles have actually played a role in shaping humanity as a species?
That's a question that takes us from the realm of individual health to this vast canvas of evolution.
Right.
Some scientists theorize that fluctuations in solar activity over very long periods could have exerted evolutionary pressures, shaping the trajectory of life on Earth.
So we're talking about solar activity potentially influencing the course of evolution. That's a pretty big idea. How would that even work?
Well, think about it. Major solar events like these intense geomagnetic storms, they can have profound effects on our planet. They can disrupt ecosystems, trigger climate change, even affect mutation rates at a genetic level. These are all factors that can drive evolutionary change.
So a particularly strong solar storm, millions of years ago, could have wiped out certain species, giving others a chance to thrive and adapt. And those survivors might have passed on traits that made them more resilient to these solar disruptions, leading to long-term evolutionary shifts.
Exactly. It's a fascinating puzzle to consider.
Yeah.
And one that scientists are just beginning to piece together. We're talking about timescales that are hard to grasp.
Right.
But the idea that these solar cycles could have shaped the very fabric of life on Earth is incredibly compelling.
It's mind-boggling to think that we could be the descendants of those who weathered the solar storms of the past, carrying within us the genetic legacy of their resilience. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Some researchers suggest that solar activity might not only influence our physical evolution, but also our consciousness.
Now we're venturing into truly uncharted territory.
Yep.
Remember how we discussed the possibility that geomagnetic storms could disrupt the pineal gland?
Right.
Well, in some spiritual traditions, the pineal gland is considered the seat of the soul or a connection point to these higher realms of consciousness.
Hold on. Are we suggesting that solar flares could be messing with our spiritual vibes?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big leap.
It's certainly a theory that pushes the boundaries of conventional science, but some researchers are exploring the possibility that these geomagnetic storms, those energetic pulses from the sun, could be subtly influencing our perceptions, our intuition, even our spiritual experiences.
I have to admit, this is all pretty mind-blowing. It challenges everything we think we know about our place in the universe. If solar activity can shape our evolution and even our consciousness, what does that mean for the future of humanity?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it? As we learn more about these connections, we might be able to anticipate how future solar cycles could impact us on a global scale. Perhaps we can even develop ways to harness these solar energies to enhance our well-being, both individually and collectively.
So instead of just bracing ourselves for the next solar storm, maybe we can learn to ride the waves, so to speak.
Precisely. We're moving beyond simply seeing the sun as a source of light and heat. We're starting to recognize it as a force that's intimately connected to life itself. A force that has shaped our past and could very well shape our future.
Well, folks, we've reached the end of our deep dive into heliobiology. And I have to say, this has been one of our most thought-provoking episodes yet.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground from, solar tantrums and melatonin to the mind-bending possibility that the sun is shaping our very evolution and consciousness.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope it sparked your curiosity to keep exploring.
Remember, the next time you feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, take a moment to consider the profound and mysterious ways it might be influencing your life.
This deep dive has given us a lot to ponder. And one thing's for sure, we'll never look at the sun the same way again. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.